Hey, welcome back. Have you ever just stopped and thought about the incredible range of what a human being can be? You know, how one person can achieve these amazing, brilliant heights, while another person can fall into the absolute depths. Well, today we're diving into a really profound text called the 23rd Word, and it argues that this huge difference, this duality, isn't just random. It's actually the result of a single fundamental choice that defines literally everything about us. And the whole argument really hinges on this one powerful verse. It's basically saying that we are all created as masterpieces, right? We're made on the most excellent of patterns. But something can happen that sends us spiraling down to the lowest of the low. So what is that something? Well, according to this text, it all comes down to a choice. And that choice is the key that unlocks everything else we're about to talk about. So right off the bat, we're faced with two paths. And look, these aren't just slightly different ways of living, like choosing between two different jobs. The source is arguing that these are two completely separate realities that determine our worth, the very lens through which we see the universe, and our ultimate reason for being here.
Yeah, this is not about being a little bit good or a little bit bad. The text paints this picture of two absolute, polar opposite extremes, the highest of the high and the lowest of the low. And it suggests that pretty much every choice we make is nudging us toward one end of that spectrum or the other.
Okay, so how can our values swing so wildly? It seems pretty dramatic, right? Well, the source gets into this with a fascinating analogy. It asks a pretty simple question. What actually makes a human life priceless? Is it just the sum of our physical parts, or is there something else going on? So here's the core of that analogy. With belief, a person is like a priceless work of art. Their incredible value comes from their connection to the artist, the divine creator. But without that connection, the art is hidden, it's concealed. All you're left with is the raw material, this scrap iron, which on its own is almost worthless in comparison. And the text does not pull any punches here. It describes unbelief as a process that literally changes our very nature. It transforms what could be a diamond into simple coal. I mean, talk about a powerful image of lost potential. So this choice clearly impacts our inner value. But the text argues it goes even deeper than that. It doesn't just change who you are, it changes the entire world you see. An essential vision in the text explains exactly how. Okay, so I want you to picture this scene. There's a man, he's on a bridge, and he is surrounded by a terrifying, all-encompassing darkness. The only light he has is this tiny, dim little torch. And that torch, according to the source, represents the human ego, our own limited understanding, totally cut off from any kind of higher truth or revelation. And with only that tiny flame to guide him, the world he sees is horrifying. To his right, the past looks like a huge, gloomy grave. To his left, the future is just violent storms. And his path, the bridge itself, is surrounded by monsters. Now, this isn't the real reality. It's the reality created by the limited, fearful light of the ego. But then, in a moment of frustration, he smashes the torch. And just like that, the world is flooded with light. Everything changes. The grave of the past is revealed to be a beautiful green garden. The stormy future? It's a place of feasting. And those terrifying monsters? They were just familiar animals like camels and sheep the whole time. The reality itself never changed, but his perception of it did, completely and totally. This whole vision is really just a powerful illustration of the text's central idea, which is echoed perfectly in this verse. Belief isn't just an idea you hold in your head, it's the light source that banishes the darkness, replacing a world of fear with one of meaning, beauty, and peace. Now, this brings us to a really fascinating paradox. If our own ego is so limited and weak, then where does true strength come from? The text argues that it's found not in trying harder, not in self-reliance, but actually in surrender and trust in a higher power. And to explain this, the text uses a really simple parable. Imagine two men getting on a massive ship. The first guy foolishly insists on carrying his heavy luggage on his own back the whole time, and he just gets weaker and more exhausted. The second, wiser man simply puts his luggage down on the deck, letting the enormous ship do all the work. That ship, of course, represents God. Trying to carry all the burdens of life with our own limited strength is just exhausting and, frankly, a bit silly. Trusting in something infinitely greater brings comfort, ease, and security. So this leads to a really clear progression, a kind of formula for happiness. It all starts with belief. That belief then makes it possible to have submission, which is really about letting go of the ego's need to control everything, and this, in turn, allows for true reliance on a higher power. And the text argues that that is the ultimate source of happiness, not just in the next life, but right here, right now.
Okay, so let's bring all these ideas together. We've talked about our value, our perception of reality, our true source of strength. So what does this all add up to? What, then, is our fundamental purpose for being here? The final section of the text synthesizes all of this into a clear definition of our innate duty.
So what is our main job here, according to the text? It's not about physical labor or building things. It's a journey of learning and seeking. It's about recognizing our own limitations and needs, what the text beautifully calls our impotence and poverty. And this recognition, it isn't a weakness. It's the very thing that makes us look for something greater, that allows us to fly to the high station of worship.
The source argues that our complex abilities, our intellect, our heart, our spirit, are just way too advanced for the brief, temporary life we live in this world. You know, it's like being given a supercomputer just to play tic-tac-toe. It doesn't make sense. These incredible faculties we have, they point to a much higher purpose, to an everlasting life that we're meant to be preparing for. We are guests here with a job to do. And that job, that state of worship, it has two main sides to it. The first is about how we look at the world around us, observing the universe as this incredible art gallery, and affirming the artist behind it. The second part is more direct. It's about responding to that creator with belief, with love, and with gratitude. It's this constant cycle of observation and response.
And by fulfilling this dual purpose, the text concludes that a human being finally achieves their highest potential. They don't just become a slightly better person. They become a true king, a universal being, and even a supervisor of creation. They fully realize that most excellent pattern upon which they were first created.
And so we end up right back where we started, facing that central choice. The text has laid out two completely different paths. One that sees the world as dark and meaningless, reducing humanity to mere scrap, and another that sees it as an illuminated masterpiece, elevating humanity to the highest possible station. So the ultimate question it leaves us with is this: how do we consciously, intentionally choose the path that makes us that most excellent pattern?